effortlessly. I just want life to be beautiful. And I'll take action on whatever I need to take action on, but I don't want to have to always be fighting. And ask and you shall receive. Life stopped being a fight. I started to be able to just exist and have an effortless life. I'm living more instinctually now instead of living in my mind. I don't live thinking about the future and the past. I know where I'm going, and that's enough. And I can now be present, and I can just look around. I could do a 360, and it didn't matter which situation I was in. 2 years ago, when I was living next to a ghetto, single mother of two, feeling broken and hurt, I was still able to do a 360 in my house and pick out 360 things I was grateful for. Even though I wanted more, even though it wasn't the ideal situation, I was able to say, I'm grateful for that doorknob that's not broken. It's hanging on the wall, and I can open that door and I can walk in and out of it anytime I want. I'm grateful for this blue sky that feels so great. I'm grateful for the birds chirping. I'm grateful for the bed that I had to lay in. I'm grateful for the covers I have to wrap myself in. I'm grateful for my daughters and their acceptance. And there's so many things you can be grateful for. And I was able to shift my state of mind by thinking about things that I love. And guess what? I attracted more things that I love into my life, more things to be grateful for. I now live in an incredible neighborhood, in an awesome house with a new car. And I'm not saying this stuff to impress you. I'm saying it to show you that it doesn't matter your situation, doesn't matter your limitation. It doesn't matter your disadvantages. They're only disadvantages and limitations if you accept them as such. And you don't have to. You don't have to accept any of your situations, your circumstances as disadvantages and limitations unless you want to. So ask yourself, do I want to accept being blind as a limitation or a disadvantage? If you say no, then use it as your superpower. This is what I did. I said, all these things that I'm being judged for, I want it to be my superpower. And I flipped. I started to say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to share my story, and I'm going to do it from a place of empowerment, from a place that doesn't get covered in shame. Because I used to tell it in shame. I was ashamed of being who I was. Just like you might be ashamed of being the blind guy or the blind girl. You don't have to be. That's up to you. That's not up to society. We talk about society being judgmental. As soon as I accepted what I had as a power instead of a weakness, the world saw it that way too. When I talked about it, whenever I stood up on stage, whenever I would communicate with someone about it, I said it from a place of empowerment instead of a place of being a victim from it. And the results were much, much different, much more powerful and beautiful. So, if you're not happy with the way society is treating you for it, it's because that's the way you're treating yourself as well.
I think that's really good advice. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's the advice that my, mostly blind audience needs to hear. Because this podcast is mostly directed towards blind people. I only post it in very specific places because I know who my audience is. You have to know who you're talking to.
Right.
Really a lot of you're 100% correct. And a lot of interesting material, a lot of different you said a lot of different things that are all really applicable to, at least I hope that if at least one person or each person in my audience can relate to maybe one thing that you said, I think it's really, really, really valuable for everyone, for me, for everyone. That's really good. And you said something that I have a question about. You said something interesting. You said that you do work in neuro language, because, and it kind of caught my attention there, because when I'm not podcasting, I teach English online as a second language. So that's my job. So I've heard a lot about neuro language coaching. Exactly. Tell us, what is that? Because I happen to have an interest in linguistics and languages.
Oh, it's such an incredible practice. Oh my gosh. So it's neuro-linguistic programming. So it's using the way you
programming. Okay.
Yeah, it's using your words, your linguistics, to help reprogram yourself or a client. So I've used it on a couple clients, and the results are just staggering. One example was a girlfriend of mine who had a very traumatic experience with her pregnancy, and it was, there's a lot of pain. And I mean, her talking about pregnancy, it's like she's got this PTSD about it. It makes her uncomfortable, and she would never want to have a kid again because of it. Well, I changed that within about 10 minutes by just helping her re-see that situation. So I'll help her replay this memory where it was so painful and it hurt so bad. And I put her there. I allowed her to identify with that situation, that memory, and turn that memory into something else. Because every memory that we have is created. We create the memory the way we interpret the situation. So just like anyone learns from better, some people learn better visually, some people learn better auditorially, and I'm sure you will relate with that more than obviously
Right,
the
right.
visual learning, right?
The auditory is
And the
how
kinesthetic,
right. There's of
right? So
course the seven intelligences, but there's like seven different ways that people learn and basically absorb information and interpret
right.
the environment. Right. Sure. Definitely.
Right. So knowing that, and I mean, you don't have to be blind to be, someone who learns better off of auditory or kinesthetic in the feeling and the touch. That's just, we're born this way. So, if you know that, and here's an example before I even keep going. Two people can go watch the same movie and receive a different message. Have you ever noticed that?
It's true. It's true. There was the other yes, you're correct. And the other interesting thing about this whole neuro linguistics and neuro language programming that I kind of segued it in my mind when you were talking about a really interesting example in history. History is my like favorite subject in school. I love teaching people about history. I just love talking about history. And one of the most interesting things that happened, as you probably know, is the historical event that surrounded Nelson Mandela's life. That a great portion of society, um, some people in South Africa and some people in the world actually believed that Nelson Mandela passed away in prison when in fact he passed away at his home. So it's a really
Right.
have, do you remember that? Do you remember hearing
Yeah,
about
no, I actually, yeah, I do remember hearing that. And there's a couple cases around the world of people who remember things differently.
so why so I mean I'm fascinated by it as a teacher of English as a second language. I try to I mean, of course I teach English, but then I also am interested in how people perceive things and how people think through certain different equations, whether it's educational or coaching or life or any and all of the experiences and things that you've said so eloquently and beautifully, by the way. So, but can you
Thank you.
can you can you kind of explain it a little bit more? How could a and it's not simple at all. So I'm not going to say
Well,
simple, but
here's
right,
here's my simplest version of the explanation is we all create a different map of reality
right,
depending on scenario, situation, and the way we process information. So it's not just about how we learn better. Some people learn better visually, some people learn better auditorially, but it's about how we process that information. When we see something, our map of reality, if we learn better and process information better visually, our map of reality is based on things we see. Some people's map of reality is based more on what they hear, or more of what they feel, or more of the way they translate things. So knowing that, when you have a completely different map of reality, the way you see the world, then you translate what you see differently or what you hear differently. So what two people looking at the same situation, one heard something that the other didn't, one saw something that the other didn't. So they created their own result from that. And it could be two completely different results because one was looking at something and one was listening to something. Does that make sense?
yeah. Oh, yes, without doubt it does. Um, so why do you think people do this so often with so many? I mean, I guess the answer is I guess everybody has their own perceived reality, their own map. They're a
Yeah,
map of
that's
reality.
it exactly, right? We build those as we, as we grow. Our map of reality is based on the way we perceive information, perceive the world, perceive people. So if you're going, you're 30 years old, you have 30 years worth of this map built in your mind. So
Right.
sometimes you build this map where, because you built it one way and there's other ways you could have built it but you didn't, you
Mm-hmm.
can't process information in another way.
That's really, really cool. Really fascinating. Yeah. So so sure, sure. No, that's great. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's that.
it's really exciting once you get to know it, and this is where you can actually program people when you realize what map of reality they're working with. So if I know that someone is working with, they process information better with their auditory,
Right.
I can appeal to their auditory. So with my girlfriend, she was auditory. I could tell by certain signals and cues. So I helped her. I closed her eyes and I brought her back to this situation. I started to change what she heard in the memory, because again, this memory was a construct. She heard certain information that was happening and she felt certain things that was happening, and then after it was over, she created the memory based on what she heard and she felt and saw, and all of these other things. So when you think about it, every memory that she had is created. So if it's created, we can change it. If you create a memory, then you can change a memory. So what we did was we walked through it, and I told her, okay, now you see the scene. What do you feel? What do you see? What do you hear? And I walked through all those, and I changed all those things that she described. She said, well, I hear this. I said, okay, well, now that sound that you're talking about, speed it up. Make it sound like a chipmunk. Make it sound like something different. Okay, you feel pain. Okay, instead of feeling pain, why don't you feel a cloud? You feel something soft, and I changed all these different sensory feelings and sounds and visuals. I helped her walk through recreating a memory that was traumatic. So we were reprogramming through words, just saying, okay, change this, change that. And then I would get her to step out of that scenario, be the third person watching it. So like put it on a TV screen. So now you've got that scenario that we're talking about that you were just in, put it on a TV screen in front of you. So now you see yourself and you see the pain you're feeling, you see the sounds you're hearing, you see the sights you're seeing, but you're not there. So you don't feel them. You don't see them. You don't hear them. You just see yourself on the screen experiencing it, but you're disconnected from it. Now, let's make that. And I would ask, do you see it in color? Do you see it black and white? I'd say color. It's vivid. Of course, it's vivid. Well, make it black and white. Make all the sounds. Turn the volume down. Make it fuzzy. Make it crackle. Make that memory. So I'm disassociating them with the memory. I'm taking them out of the memory and then helping them take control over it and changing the way it's perceived. So disassociating and changing the perception of that memory. And then I have them rocket it into a moon or, hit it with a baseball bat and destroy the negative connotation behind that memory. So that, when they open up their eyes, they're smiling. And I say, what you smiling about? It's like, I'm thinking about this memory that was so traumatic, and now I'm smiling about it. It's funny. And it can stick with you because it's not about what you say, it's about how you feel. And when you feel something different, that sticks with you. One lady, she had an abusive husband. We did the same thing. We walked through a memory where her husband was abusing her. We walked through what she was hearing, what she was feeling, what she was seeing. We changed it. We turned him into a clown baby. The way she sees him now is a clown baby, and the way that his voice comes out, it sounds like a baby. And we changed the colors. We changed them. We rocketed to the moon. And she told me about a month and a half later where her daughter was having a birthday party and he was there. And she saw him and she smiled. And she said that every time she'd be around him, she would feel uncomfortable. She'd get anxiety. She'd feel stressed out. But this time, for the first time in her life, she looked at him and just saw a clown baby. And she heard the voice in her head that just matched this memory we created, and it made her smile. And she told me she went and served him cake. And in her mind, she's like, here's your cake, clown baby, and smiling from a place of empowerment because she took control.
Really good. Yeah,
It's beautiful.
it really shows how you can change someone's memory simply by replacing those certain words and certain feelings.
Well, yeah, changing their map of that reality.
right. Basically redrawing the map, or
Yeah.
reprogramming that particular map. That is very that is